Welcome to another installment of the Yakima Symphony Orchestra's Stories from Home, a series of interviews presented by Valley Mall and available at ysomusic.org. My name is Lawrence Golan, and I am the Helen N. Jewett Music Director of the Yakima Symphony Orchestra, coming to you from my home in Denver, Colorado. Today I'm chatting with our principal bassoonist, Ryan Hare, who's coming to us from his home in Pullman, Washington. Hello, Ryan. How are you holding up over there?
I'm doing all right. These are interesting times. How are you?
They are interesting indeed. I'm perfectly fine with the small exception of, no concerts anywhere.
We have no concerts. It's really hard. It's
Right.
hard for us all.
So tell us, how long have you been playing with the Yakima Symphony Orchestra?
Well, I won the audition in 2013, so I think that means this just finished my seventh season.
And in 7 seasons, is there one concert or perhaps one piece that is the most memorable to you? By
I
the way,
think several come to mind. Go ahead.
before you answer, I have a prediction about what you're going to say. Go ahead and we'll
Do
see.
you? Well, I will say among the runners-up would definitely include dressing as Elvis and playing Michael Dougherty's Dead Elvis. And I think my very first really classical concert was huge because it was Beethoven Symphony 6, Dukas, Sorcerer's Apprentice, and Rite of Spring by Stravinsky. And those are all huge, huge rep for the bassoon. But I think the most memorable for me actually was Bruckner Symphony 4 from last year. And that's not a big bassoon part, but I really love Bruckner. As one of my favorite composers, I find Bruckner's music endlessly fascinating. And I've mostly found, with only a couple exceptions, that American orchestras don't do Bruckner very well. I mean, outside the Chicago Symphony, I don't think there are very many American orchestras that have much of a Bruckner tradition at all. So I'm used to really hearing a Bruckner sound from Vienna Philharmonic, right? Berlin Philharmonic or whatever, Leipzig Gewandhaus. And I had a little trepidation about like, how are we going to do this? Is this going to, and I was blown away we made, I think, a really valid and creditable Bruckner sound. And I just loved it. And I actually kind of liked that I didn't have a huge part. And it has a couple little bits, but I could just sit there and listen like, wow, we sound like a Bruckner orchestra. To me, that was amazing.
Well, that's great. Well, first of all, I will say that what I was expecting you to say was the one you gave as a runner-up, the Rite of Spring, Sorcerer's Apprentice, Beethoven Sixth Concert, just because each and every piece on that concert is a major bassoon piece.
It is, yeah.
And that was your first concert as principal bassoon. So, yeah, I was definitely expecting you to say that. And yeah, I appreciate your comments about the Bruckner. For what it's worth, my father was with the Chicago Symphony for 49 years, and I grew up my childhood was going to rehearsals and concerts of the Chicago Symphony. So yeah, for me, Bruckner was an absolute staple with the Chicago Symphony Orchestra. And of course, I have their box set recording of all the Bruckner symphonies with Sir George Solti. So I never knew it wasn't standard repertoire because for me it always was, along with the Mahler symphonies
Yeah, but you look, very few American orchestras do much Bruckner at all besides Chicago. I
right.
mean, in Europe, in Germany and Austria, et cetera, Middle Europe, of course, they do it all the time. And that's where, Vienna Philharmonic does Bruckner all the time, of
Right.
course. But yeah, American orchestras don't do it that much.
Looking ahead to next year, is there any particular concert or any particular piece that you're most looking forward to?
Well, runner-up would definitely be the Revuelta Senza Maya,
Okay.
which I think is an incredible orchestral showpiece. But I've got to say Mahler 5. I mean, you can imagine if I love Bruckner, how much, therefore, I love Mahler. And
Right.
so doing Mahler 5, I've never played that one. Strangely enough, it'll be new for me. And it's Mahler. I love them all. I love all the symphonies of Mahler, and I can't wait to play Mahler 5.
I couldn't agree more. That's certainly the highlight for me coming up next year. Uh, and going back to my Chicago Symphony upbringing, it was basically Bruckner and Mahler. Those are what the Chicago Symphony, uh, you know, was famous for and is famous for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah,
And Richard Strauss and Bela Bartok, but yeah, sure. Mahler, Bruckner, for sure too.
basically anything really epic, big, and difficult. That's what they do.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they do great.
Yep.
Okay, so tell us. We all know about your wonderful bassoon playing, and I think most of our viewers probably know that you're a wonderful composer as well. But is there some surprising, maybe some sort of fun fact about you that we don't all know that you wouldn't mind sharing with us?
That's a tough question. I mean, I feel like, well, I mean, our listeners don't know much about me, but you know enough about me that I don't know if I would surprise you with anything, honestly. But I really love J.R.R. Tolkien. So I read The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings and The Silmarillion when I was in middle school, and honestly never got over it. So
Yeah,
I'm really a fiend.
you're right with your preface. That doesn't surprise me at all.
No, I didn't think it would.
But our viewers a little bit. Yeah, I'll share with our viewers about you, and I mean this in the most loving and endearing way. Ryan Hare is the biggest bassoon geek I have ever known. And again, I mean that lovingly. He will talk about, he'll say, "Oh, don't you just love the second bassoon part in Zemlinsky's Third Symphony, Fourth Movement? I mean, that's like the best bassoon part ever." And things like that. And I just...
So, do I need to correct you that Zemlinsky didn't write three symphonies?
See what I mean, everybody?
Yeah.
Anyway, well, you know, we all miss performing together, and our audience especially misses your playing and all of our colleagues playing in the Yakima Symphony. So would you please play something for us?
Yeah, and I miss playing for all of you. It's very hard. But yeah, you know, being a composer, I could have quit bassoon. A lot of composers don't play much, except for piano, right? And I know a few composers who were bassoonists and quit. But you're right, I love bassoon too much to quit. Anyway, so what I have for you, there's a Brazilian composer named Francisco Mignone, who was a contemporary of Villa-Lobos, the very famous composer. And he loved the bassoon, and he wrote a lot of music for bassoon, including these 16 waltzes. Now, I have to explain that Brazilian waltzes are not like a Viennese waltz. Viennese waltzes are one beat per bar, kind of a boom, chuck, chuck, boom, chuck, chuck kind of an effect. A Brazilian waltz is very different. It's much, much slower. It's 3 beats to a bar instead of 1. They're more like sad, sentimental songs than something you would dance to. And they also have the character of being very improvised. So Mignone wrote these 16 waltzes for solo bassoon. And bassoonists love these pieces, and I love them too. And they're always very personal because they invite very personal, very just individual interpretation. So the one I'm going to play is number 7, and it's called Valsa Improvisada. I'm going to play a couple notes first, just to make sure all is working. Also, I need to do that. Thumbs up? Sound okay?
It's loud enough.
Great.
Hare, principal bassoonist of the Yakima Symphony Orchestra. That was fantastic, Ryan, and thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's good to have a gig.
Well, I look forward to playing with you live and in person as soon as possible.
Me too, very much. I miss all y'all.